So there's all of that. Let's welcome in senior NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski now. And Woj, when a team is sliding like this, right, oftentimes we start to ask, well, should a change be made? So I'm just going to put this bluntly. Why haven't the Lakers made a coaching change here?
I think two primary reasons, I'm told. One, they are accounting for the fact that Anthony Davis is out and has missed a lot of games this season. Kendrick Nunn hasn't played yet this season, a guard they signed that they thought could impact this team. I think, but ultimately, they don't feel in L.A. right now that it would make a difference to let Frank Vogel go. This is a team that wants to still get in the play-in, to get Anthony Davis back, to find a way to get their group. And they still have a coach in Frank Vogel who's won a championship there, who's had success in the playoffs. And listen, it is hard for any coach to survive the kind of games the Lakers have had this week where you don't see effort and you're getting blown out. That can't go on forever.
Can't coach that.
But the Lakers still would like to get through the rest of this season with Frank Vogel.
Absolutely.
I mean, Vogel's a scapegoat. You know, you can't, is it his fault? This is a poorly constructed roster. This is, there's no secret. And I think the only reason why we all had hope in the Lakers is because of LeBron's greatness, and AD is who he is. But at the end of the day, this is an older team. So to me, if they can sneak their way in the playoffs, this team is built for the playoffs. And I say that because this is just an older team. I don't think anyone thought that this Russell Westbrook experience would go this bad. You know, no one would predict at the beginning of the season, especially the way he played at the end of last season, this would go this bad. So this team right now is just trying to stay afloat. Hopefully AD can come back and give them something. I think AD's inability to stay on the court throughout his career, but in particular this year, has really hurt this team.
Yeah, I mean, some of those injuries when a 7-foot man falls into your knee, there's just bad luck at some point. But Russell Westbrook did say last night that he felt that his role has sort of changed from game to game to game. And so it's been hard for him to find a rhythm, Chiney. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it was difficult because, again, I keep bringing up that the Lakers, their roster started with 12 new players, and they're up to 14 right now. So the number one thing that they needed was chemistry. And remember, Perk was here on the show saying, you know, preseason is when you got to really go. Listen, preseason is when you really have to go. And they sort of relax because they have older players. And then next thing you know, LeBron James misses, you know, earlier a large portion of the early third. So Russ is like, okay, this is LeBron's team. AD won a championship, was integral in that, but I have to do this on my own. Then LeBron James comes back, and now AD's gone. When you have so many new players, it's hard to build chemistry, and especially when they're veterans that are stuck in their ways. We've seen the intention to try to change, play different styles. Russ instantly upped the pace. But the reality is, and Matt, you know this as well, when you play with the team, there's an opportune time in the first 20 or so games to get it right. They did not get it right then. It's hard to do that in the middle of the season, approaching All-Star break, and they're 0-4 after All-Star break. It's hard to do it now.
And this roster's turned over every year LeBron's been here. And I don't think people understand. You see big names on paper. You have a handful of Hall of Famers on one team. But as Chiney can attest to, chemistry is so important. I think it's so undervalued today. These guys made it look easy because they, you know, struck lightning in the bubble and were able to win with the newly constructed roster. But it is very hard to win year after year when you're, like you said, you're bringing 12 new guys in. That's insane.
Not to mention the fact that it seems that within the season, based on who's been available, their roster has changed over and over and over again. Because I think back to that stretch where LeBron James was out for a bit, Russell Westbrook, he found his groove. Even if it was only for 5 games, he found his groove a little bit. But then you add LeBron back, things change. You add Anthony Davis back, things change again. So this is a Lakers team where right now is the time they have to catch a rhythm.
Hope is alive.
Is it?
Right.
The door's not closed on that. I'm not saying I'm coming back and playing. I don't know. I don't know what my future holds. So much to unpack there. But, Ramona, let's start with you. The biggest storyline coming out of the many, many LeBron comments is?
Look, it's not so much LeBron saying he could go back to Cleveland. It's this idea that LeBron is frustrated with the Lakers for not making a move at the trade deadline. He's not hiding it. Obviously, he's frustrated with what they did not do at the trade deadline. But let me call something right now. He's not looking to leave Los Angeles. I've checked on every planet LeBron. LeBron wants to stay with the Lakers. He's not going anywhere. He just wants them to do more for him. And he's under contract through next year. And this is, you know, part of this is, of course, he signed off on the Russell Westbrook situation. They're trying to make this work. But if you back up, this is not the first time the Lakers have said no to something LeBron wants them to do. Go all the way back to the coaching search before they hired Frank Vogel. Tyronn Lue was his choice. LeBron has a long history with Tyronn Lue. The Lakers did not hire him. Then there was Monty Williams, who they got deep into negotiations with, but Frank Vogel ended up being the choice. Now, LeBron showed up to that press conference. He showed up and supported Frank Vogel. He was fine with it. But you go back in time, this is not the first time the Lakers have said no, and it's just the last time. And now LeBron's leverage is, I can talk and say things like this that make them and everyone else talk about it. Slightly uncomfortable.
Let me ask you guys this, and Matt, I'll start with you. Does this get, like, do you feel like this is maybe LeBron saying, hey, I'm drawing the line in the sand here, it's me or him? Because it feels like he's painting Pelinka in a bad light, right? So, Matt, I'll start with you.
I think it was kind of a shot at Pelinka with all the praise for Pressey. But at the end of the day, I love the fact that rarely do we get to see a player control his final destination. And if any player ever deserved to do that, I think it's LeBron James. So I love that he's keeping every single door open. He's keeping the Lakers on their toes. He's keeping Cleveland on their toes. And then we'll talk about it later, but he's throwing his son in the mix, and that's where he wants to play. So again, a lot of messages, but everything you got to remember with LeBron is very strategic. So he may just be throwing stuff out there, but he knows a lot more than he's telling, and I can't wait to see where everything happens.
Perk, I'm going to save you for last because I know that you've got plenty to say on this, I'm sure. But let's introduce our friend Mark Spears from The Undefeated joining us here. Mark, what do you make of this situation with LeBron?
Well, I think Cleveland is playing on it real well, man. When I was at the game, first of all, like Perk knows that mural across the street. It was a Nike ad, but LeBron was back on it. And then before the game, he did his chalk thing.
Yeah.
He does it in L.A., but it's different. Like, they're waiting for it. So he throws the chalk up, and it's this exclamation of screams and excitement that you only get in Cleveland, right? And Perk, you know this because you played there. The time he made a basket, they played I'm the Plug, Breaking Future. When they used to do that for him, every time he made a basket, and whether it was a pregame for the All-Star game, top 75 or the game-winning shot, they roared as if he was still playing there. So I wonder if he felt a little nostalgic and was reminded about how much he means to the city of Cleveland and how much money he made them this weekend as well. Starts thinking about Cleveland again. I think this weekend probably will be embedded in his mind.
I agree. Look, everybody made great points. Here's one thing that I look at when the first thing is that we hadn't seen LeBron smile that much this entire season since Space Jam, right? He was having a great time in the moment, right? And now it's back to reality, back to the Lakers, back to them struggling, back to them not winning games. But it's a couple of things, right? Yes, he was shooting a shot at Rob Pelinka, but I also thought at that point of time that he was praising Sam Presti, it was a point that he could have made of also praising and giving flowers to Troy Weaver.
That's right.
I love Sam Presti. Sam Presti definitely have an eye for the game. But at the same time, Troy Weaver was that guy sitting right next to Sam Presti when he named all those guys that were drafted by the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think when a guy like LeBron James have an opportunity to speak that has power, and he has the opportunity to speak, especially when we're trying to get, African Americans in those front office jobs as leaders, although Troy Weaver is in a front office job, but it's great to acknowledge him to let the world know that, hey, he's doing the same thing as the other guy. And I thought Braun missed a golden opportunity right there to acknowledge that person in that situation.
Ramona, you wanted to weigh in?
Yeah, that's a great point, Perk. I was thinking the same thing with Troy Weaver and also Scott Perry, who was in that front office at the same time. They were drafting a lot of those guys. Scott Perry's in New York now. Troy Weaver's in Detroit. The other thing with LeBron and this Lakers team is, look, David McMenamin had a story last week where Rob Pelinka said there's an alignment between the Lakers front office with Anthony Davis and LeBron James in terms of they were on board with this idea that they weren't going to make any moves. There's a difference between telling LeBron or Anthony Davis, like, we don't have anything, we're trying to get some stuff done, and not getting it done, and them being okay with it. And I think that's kind of where this alignment idea came into play, and David McMenamin wrote that, no, there's not an alignment.
Yeah, he used the word totally false was the quote from the source.
And I think that's really the relationship that the Lakers need to work on going forward, which is, LeBron wants to win wherever he has been. And Brian Windhorst has a great story about this on ESPN right now. Wherever he has been, He delivers. Like, that's how you go to finals every single year. You put a lot of pressure on the organization. Now, there was a choice they had in the offseason between Buddy Hield, Russell Westbrick, and DeMar DeRozan. The Lakers chose Russell Westbrick, and LeBron James, Anthony Davis were part of that choice. But one of the other choices, DeMar DeRozan, never got to that point because the Lakers were unwilling to go 3 years, which is what he ended up getting in Chicago, on a new contract for DeMar. So this is, you at the time, it was okay because they had the Westbrook option, and that was what everyone was on board with. But when things don't go well, you go.
His children, his twins, and his son. All right, we now welcome back senior NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski. So, Woj, what are you hearing about how Westbrook is handling this behind the scenes?
Well, listen, it's one thing to come to L.A. and play for the Lakers with the stature of Russell Westbrook, the significance of that trade, and there's pressure that comes with that. There's going to be criticism that comes with the Lakers when you don't play well. But what's, I think, different for Westbrook is that he's from here. He grew up here. He played his college basketball here. He met his wife here. This is where he wants to raise his family, and he's had an immense impact on the communities that he grew up in. You know, he stayed very connected at UCLA. And I think more than just coming to LA to try to win a championship, it was to really be a part of this place again. And I think that's part of beyond the basketball criticism and how the team's done. And I think when he sees how that's impacted his family, you know, he's very close with his parents and they still live here. And I think seeing how it's impacting them, and you saw the emotion of it last night. And I think as a player, you know you sign up for that. You know that you're in the public arena, and when you don't play well, and you don't play well for the Lakers, the team's not winning, there's criticism that comes with that. But I think it's exponential because of his ties here, his history, and the impact he's had as a member of this community in L.A.
Right. I remember talking to Russell Westbrook earlier in the season and asking him about maybe something that he didn't foresee when he came to L.A. And he chose to say, I think people forget that this is the first time I get to take my kids to school every day, those sorts of things. That's something that he didn't necessarily think he was going to get to do and didn't realize the gravity of until he arrived in L.A. But I want to dive into the heart of Westbrook's comments last night about the harassment his family is experiencing. Because to start, Kendrick, just your reaction to what he said.
You know what? I said this, and we were on here maybe about a month ago, and I said that Russell Westbrook is broken. And I'm not talking about his jump shot. Yes, we can go down the line and say how he should play better, but I could see it. I could see it in his body language. And now we finally are realizing that Russell Westbrook is human. And if you watch this film right here, look, he's not even involved. Like, mentally, he's not even there. He didn't even move that entire possession at all. And so now, you know, when you feel sorry for him at one aspect because you don't never want to see, like, you know, his family get attacked. But then on the other side of it, you also have to play a role of actually keeping your family in check. And so I'll give you an example for us with my wife. She knew when I was playing, I got a lot of criticism, especially when I went to Oklahoma City. I told her, stay away from that. Don't respond to nobody in the social media. I can handle it. This is what I signed up for. So it's to the point now, and this is not a hot take. This is just being real. It's to the point where I'm almost to the point where I think it's almost best for Russ just not to play the rest of this season because he's not there. When you hear a guy that you grew up watching in Magic Johnson criticize you the way that Magic did the other night and saying how that if this don't happen, it would be the worst trade and Russell Westbrook hasn't done this, that hurts a little differently. So right now, I understand Russ and I understand him protecting his family, but I also understand that, hey, you're getting paid $40+ million. It's a certain level of expectations that you gotta, you know, that's been held for you that you gotta be able to, you know, live up to.
But I think it's a fine line, right? Because I know Russell Westbrook, he mentioned the media criticism specifically. He also mentioned fan criticism. And again, the sign up for part, right? That when you play poorly, there is some level of analysis or digging into the game or critiquing the game that I think is warranted and expected. But what people don't expect is the mean part necessarily and the level of which people are that way, especially now with social media, with it being constant, with it being all the time. Because I think when you're not looking at someone in their face and having a conversation with them, you don't say the same things as you would behind a screen or when you're yelling into an abyss of an arena. But Richard, how did you sort of shoulder that?
Yeah, but
go ahead.
Malika, to your point, I understand that, right? I get death threats right now because of an NBA 2K game. Like, people talk about my
I've actually heard this.
Like, real talk. So I understand.
What?
Yes, I understand. I get death threats about, hey, if you talk about my player again, it's gonna be me and
They know
you.
that's pre-recorded, right?
Right.
NBA
So,
2K.
but on the
But yes.
but on
percent shooting joining Wilt, MJ, Karl Malone, and randomly, Adrian Dantley. People didn't know much about Adrian Dantley. Look, Kyrie was flat out brilliant last night in just his fifth game this season, where both KD and him took the floor for the Nets. Chene, as a Nets fan, are you more frustrated or more excited by seeing this performance
You
from
see
him?
what he just did there? Why did he put on like as okay? I guess hypothetically as a Nets fan, I thought you were calling me a Nets fan.
No, I'm saying no. I was saying like Nets
yes,
fans.
as Nets fan.
Yes.
You know what? You're split right down the middle. You're so excited to have seen Kyrie Irving, and that was the locked in, and that's what KD was saying. The locked in Kyrie, the same moment you had in 2016 alongside him that delivered that clutch shot in Game 7 versus the Warriors. So yeah, you see these glimpses of, oh my gosh, if we had that full time, we'd be more than all right. We'd be favorites, and they've been favorites for a large portion of the season, but we've seen the situation of life change the trajectory of this team. So I love seeing Kyrie lock in and show what he can do, and also show young fellas out there, and I say young fellas like I'm an old lady or something like that. I show young people out there, hey, you can do this efficiently. You don't have to put up 50 shots, 40 shots to get your numbers. You can take the right shot at the right moment, don't dribble the ball too much, and play good basketball. The reason I'm split is like, you love that, but at the same time, you're like, why can't we have this at home? Like, why are we in this position?
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm more frustrated. And before all the Nets start jumping in saying that I'm hating, let me tell you why I'm frustrated. It's because Kyrie is one of the most skilled guys to ever play the game of basketball. And when he's not available, it feels like we're being cheated, right? Like last night, it was almost like, yes, like the game needs you. And when he's not there, it's like, come on, Kyrie, like, come on, we want to see these performances. We want to see these Euro steps to the float game. We want to see all this craftiness in the handle and the complete package. So when you look at it last night, I'm frustrated for a few reasons. One is because KD obviously needs you. Two, you're not full time. But three, don't cheat us. Like, don't cheat us. As a fan, I want to see Kyrie play the game of basketball. Like, I never had a problem with Kyrie Irving on the court. Is always off the court action. So on the court, he's just a joy and a pleasure to watch.
Well, speaking of off the court, Woj, has there been any movement regarding his availability for the home games in Brooklyn?
Listen, there has been optimism around the Nets, around the league office, Players Association, that they're going to eventually get there with Kyrie Irving and the mandate in New York. How soon that happens still remains a question. But certainly you've seen a progression in the mayor's office of alleviating restrictions, but still the performer restriction that keeps Kyrie Irving out hasn't changed. But listen, this has become obviously a very complicated issue with the city, with how they want to handle this, especially with so much focus on one individual. But I think around the Nets, there's still a confidence, maybe even more than an optimism, that they're going to get Kyrie Irving on a full-time basis at some point. But time is running out for this team right now that is, still at 500, still, when you look at the postseason standings, is going to have a real difficult time, working their way out of an 8 seed to try to win the East.
Yeah, no, it's going to be extremely tough. When you look at the Brooklyn Nets, they have no room for error. If they lose a game, all of a sudden you're running out of games and it gets them a chance. It doesn't give them an opportunity to get to that top six. But what?
Hey, why are you so different today? Like, no open shirt, the tie, you got the pen in your hand. Like,
I'm sitting
like you acting brand new today.
I am brand new. Look, first of all, Malika told me don't mess this up for us. That was what she said. So I had to make sure I brought it right. But look, Kyrie's performance wasn't the only thing that the Nets spoke about following the game last night. Thursday's Nets-Sixers showdown was a big topic of conversation.
It is what it is. I mean, it's another game for us, and we're looking to win, and they're looking to win and move up in the standings for us, and they're looking to maintain where they are. So I know James was here, and he built some relationships with a couple people here, but at the end of the day, we're looking to go out there and hoop.
It's fun. It's fun. It makes for good stories. It makes for good narratives. It makes for good, build up for our league You know, it's never too personal, but, you know, we understand that as competitors, we want to win the game. So we're going there with a resolve, with a focus, and just ready for whatever.
What do you think that atmosphere will be like?
Lovely.
So KD and Kyrie said all the right things about Thursday's matchup against the 76ers, just being another game. But Perk, are you expecting it to play out that way?
Hell no. And don't you love it? Don't you love it, right? The media training that we go through in training camp. This is part of it, right? Where they say all the right things, but thinking something totally different. We all know that going into this game, one, KD and Kyrie is going to take this matchup personal towards James Harden, and vice versa. James Harden is going to want to go at KD and Kyrie, but I love how they trying to downplay it, like they're not going into Philly trying to be on a mission or show James Harden up or act like James Harden and Joel Embiid is not going to be waiting on them. I just love it. Look, this game is going to be everything. Get your popcorn ready.
Thank you.
Get your Snickers. Get you, a Big Red, a Fountain, or whatever you
Not
want.
everybody eats like you, Perk. Not everybody eats
I drink
like
water.
you, bro.
Get ready to whip your toes a little bit.
Get your ribs and macaroni and cheese ready.
I'm done with you. If you're going to hear one thing on this show, it's you stay petty so you don't have to get petty.
Yeah.
And if one city embodies that, that is Philly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, yeah, it's going to be something we all are going to watch and be excited to watch. You know, let's stay petty, but also stay cordial, right? You know, I think that's a conversation. And Perk looks and like, oh, yeah, no, nothing's off limits. But stay cordial because, you know, the guy did go through something.
Yeah.
So, yes, but it's going to be fun because, you know, you've got Joel Embiid and James Harden who have not won a championship yet going up against two guys that have. And, yeah, I mean, like, it's must-watch basketball.
And really quickly, I think, Ben Simmons says he's going to be in the building.
He's going to be there,
in the building.
just not playing.
Not playing, but the fact that he could be sitting on the bench, to me, that's a big step for him. The fact that he's going to put himself and expose himself out there.
But you know what the Nets really need? They do not have many games together with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, where they've gone through stuff. You get into postseason, as you guys know, you've got to be able to draw on some things from having played together, trust. They don't have that in Brooklyn because they haven't played together, their entire group. And they're in a race now between now and the end of the season. Forget about where they are in the standings, that they can harden this group so when they get into the difficult situations are coming in the Eastern Conference playoffs, that they can draw upon experiences, trust, knowing how they're going to play in moments. And this team doesn't have that. And we've talked about it all year long, about can they just throw this group together very late and go in and play against Milwaukee, a Philly team that is gelled quickly, obviously Miami, a healthy Chicago team, and Boston, who's the hottest team. And the best defensive team in the league. In the East, I think for the Nets, just showing they can win some of these games is going to be really important.
And Woj, that's a great point because the playoffs actually have started for the Brooklyn Nets, right? And you think about what they had to do to get that win last night against a team that they could possibly face in the Hornets. Like Kyrie had to go for 50.
It was a must-win game.
Yeah, he had to go for 50. So that's a.
Giannis dropped in 39, leading Milwaukee to their 5th straight win.
28 minutes.
And Chris Middleton was putting in work too, had 25. And look, they are deep. Bobby Portis added 18 and 14 as well. Bucks scored a season high and shot 53% from the field. Now, Giannis, he was breaking down things. Look at what he's done. Most 35-5 games in Bucks history. He is only second now to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He might be able to get that before the end of the season. Now, let's see what Perk's buddy G12 did last night. Last night against the Pelicans. I think you're right that he took last night's matchup personally because Memphis beat the Pels by 21 in this one, 132-111. Get him. Mr. Morant had 24 in this one with 8 boards and 8 dimes to boot. Jaren Jackson Jr., we're going to talk some more about him, and Desmond Bane both had 22. Memphis solidified its hold on the 2 seed out west. Oh, that's a Steph Curry. So let's look at the MVP odds according to Vegas. You got Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, all of those guys it's really a 2-man race when you look at those 2
big
guys.
men leading the charge.
We love to see it.
We love to see it. What are you talking about? Love to see it. We got some guards out here
I'm
too.
a post player.
Look at little John
Where's
Morant.
Luka Doncic on that list?
Luka Doncic,
creeping his way in.
He started off too slow. We understand that.
Wow.
But look, Joel Embiid is at a -120 and Nikola Jokic is right behind him. But you know what? You want to know what? It's my show today. It's my show today. We talk enough about the MVP. I want to talk about some other awards. And you know who could be racking up a lot of these trophies? A team near and dear to my heart. The Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's roll the highlight, ladies and gentlemen. It was a career night for a guy who could be your most improved player of the year, Darius Garland. All he did was drop 41 points and 13 dimes to help the Cavs get past the new-look Pacers. He was clutch late in this one, dropping 21 points in the fourth quarter. He's the third Cavs player to drop 20 points in the fourth quarter in the last 25 years, joining LeBron James, Kyrie Irving. That's some pretty good company. And don't sleep on the potential, which I don't think it's potential. I think it's just the rookie of the year at this point in time. Evan Mobley did it too. 22 and 12 boards. Cavs take it 124 to 122. Crucial for them to continue to stay in the middle of the pack in the East playoff race. So look at the odds for most improved. We got Ja Morant, Miles Bridges, Darius Garland, and DeJounte Murray. I don't know. Garland's kind of deep right now, but I don't think he's getting enough love. I truly do not think he's getting enough love.
He's not. And here's the thing. I don't want to downplay it, right? But I don't believe that Ja Morant should be in the most improved conversation. Here's why. And I'm not trying to make it like it's beneath him, but it was a point of time last year when we were talking about Luka possibly being the most improved. No, like, Ja's the number 2 pick. He's an all-star. Like, we have him in the MVP conversation. That's a whole nother category. Like,
So I don't know, and I always, it's funny, Richard. You know, one thing I love about Giannis's trajectory is that he went most improved, MVP, defensive player of the year. So I think it's fine to have these guys in the conversation. You don't diminish it. Huh?
And he was number 2.
He was the number 1 pick.
Yeah, but
so I mean, I guess it's just.
But real quick, Sinead, this is my argument. When you have the number 2 pick, then you have the rookie of the year. So your trajectory has always been this way. How does that put you in a position to be most improved player versus a guy like Darius Garland, who is no one expected this from the Cavs?
Yeah, no. I think yes, there are tiers of improvement. Like, you want to be able to say that as a top player that's supposed to lead your franchise, Ja Morant, you have had a great season by improving. Yeah. Like, I think the conversation, it's like, all right, what level do we talk about? And you're right, Ja should not be like the level, in that level of conversation. It should be for guys like Darius Garland. There's Anthony Simons out there, Tyrese Maxey. I love that type of echelon of player for the conversation. I hear you. That's not to say that Ja Morant has not been one of the most improved players, period.
I'm glad you brought up Simons and Maxey, because I think those two definitely belong in the conversation.
Yes.
And some of this, Miles Bridges, we forget about because he came out of the gate so fast that all the buzz was early for him, and now it's just we're expecting him to play as well as he is. But I think that I'm with you, Perk. Like, when you're the number 2 overall pick
and rookie of the year,
like, you're supposed to be this good.
Right.
You are in the MVP discussion, and when we get back to that MVP discussion, like, to me, I know he's listed there at 4th or 5th. I think he should be a little higher there, just based on Memphis is the number 2 seed right now.
Yeah, the second best record in the NBA.
Yeah.
But Darius Garland. When you look at when he was out for his injuries, the Cavs struggled. Yeah. All of a sudden, when he got back, he has a different type of swag. Like, we talk about must-see TV, but you have to turn this television on, because I'm talking about
nice.
He is super nice. Like, he has that handle, he has that charisma, but, you know, and his pull-up game from the three-point line reminds me a lot of Dame Dollar for his, you know, that hezzy, freezer, pull-up shot.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, Darius Garland, we have to remember this, too, as well. He was in the same draft class as Ja Morant.
Yep.
Some would say that he would have went higher than Ja if he wasn't injured. You know what I mean? Like, he was projected as a high pick, so.
Well, and one more thing to add to his resume, when Ricky Rubio went down, he raised his level. That's what pushed him into All-Star. So, look, we hit on the most improved of the year. Cavs could also get Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, and Executive of the Year. Which end-of-the-season award in Canada isn't getting enough hype? Ramona, I want to know.
Isn't getting enough. Well, have we talked about Defensive Player of the Year?
Thank you. Thank you. We don't talk about defense.
Like,
thank you.
This is such. I mean, I think Draymond had a handle on this one until he got hurt. And when Draymond got hurt, it kind of opened up the field to where you can now look at Joel Embiid. Sixers have a top 5 to 10 defense, depending on Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, the Bucks team defense is not what it has been in years past, so I think that hurts his case. But Mikal Bridges in Phoenix.
Bridges been balling.
All right. Yeah. Memphis deserves some looks there. And then Robert Williams from Boston. Number 1 defense in the league the last couple of months. Rudy Gobert is always kind of in contention.
Like, stagnant.
Wait, I want to hear from Sinead. So what award do you think that isn't getting enough conversation?
Ramona started on it, and so did you. You brought it up. Coach of the Year is going to be really fascinating because you look at a situation with Monty Williams having the #1 record overall in the NBA and had a lot of great, years previously in his short tenure, and it's like, okay, maybe he gets passed up again for a JB Bickerstaff, rightfully
by the
so,
way.
which rightfully
Tyrone
so, though,
Lue.
right?
Yep.
Ty Lue with the Clippers, but JB, I mean, no one
Yep.
predicted that this Cleveland team would gel and work on the court. And you talk a lot about the limitations potentially of playing with so many bigs. Well, he's shown that it is still possible right now. There's so many great candidates.
Yep.
I look at Monty, I'm like, oh, if he doesn't get it, but like you've done exactly what you needed to do. JB's out there, Ty Lue's out there. Ime Udoka has had a great second half of the season.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are a number of really quality candidates, and then not even like Memphis Grizzlies as well.
What, man?
What you got?
Well, being a defensive-minded player, I'm
There you
going
go.
with the Defensive Player of the Year. Like, we overlook this so much. And right now, I'm looking at a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr., who's leading the league in total blocks. Like, when I looked at him last year in the play-in in the playoffs, I was like, what are you doing? Now, all of a sudden, this guy is like not only coming out of nowhere, swatting everything, but I'm looking at him when he has to switch out on guards. He's doing a great job of that, playing the pick and roll. Like, the way that he's playing, his swagger, he's healthy, and where the Memphis Grizzlies, their defensive numbers are as a team, he has to be the front runner, in my opinion, for his Defensive Player of the Year.
No, I agree. For me, it's Coach of the Year, JB Bickerstaff. What he's done, I know Monty, T. Lue's my guy. Everyone's done a masterful job. It's kind of like MVP. No one's done a terrible job. But in order to do that with a bunch of bigs and a rookie big, and then getting Kevin Love to come off the bench, Jackie Moon, check this out, because this is hilarious. Come on.
Bucket.
Wait.
Let's see it.
Oh,
Let's
let me see
see
the
it.
move.
Wait,
Let me see the move.
He actually emailed me a while back, and I didn't believe it was him. And so we exchanged a couple of emails and, concocted the plan.
Man, that was fun. And that movie, Semi-Pro, during my rehabilitation, when I'd have some dark days, I would just put that movie on and it would make me smile.
It felt like a good time to do it, just to make everybody laugh in a tough stretch of the season.
All right, Perk, the Warriors snapped a 5-game losing streak, but do you think the Jackie Moon stunt will energize a team moving forward? Did you have any situation where a coach just decided to keep it light when things were a little too tight?
Yep, I remember, with Doc Rivers in 2009, 2010, it wasn't keeping it light. It was more motivational. And we had played the Lakers, I believe, on Christmas Day, and we lost to them. They snapped our winning streak. And I remember Doc, he closed the door in the locker room, and he asked everyone for some money, right? And he was like, everybody give me $100 or $200. And we was like, what we giving you money for? He was like, just give it to me, trust me. So we was like, what Doc is up to? So he took our money, went into the coach's locker room, and he got on the chair, and you could push the ceiling up, and he put the money in the ceiling, right? Ooh. And so he was like, the only way that we could get this money is if we make it back to the finals, because they're going to be here. We got to get here. And so just think about this. You go through the entire season where the Lakers, the Clippers are playing there at that Staples Center. All these visiting teams are coming in. And then all of a sudden, we get to the finals, and we get off the bus at shoot-around, and we run straight to the locker room, and the money is sitting there. So,
real quick, T. Lue was on that staff, right?
Yeah.
T. Lue did the exact same thing. Now, I'm sitting here listening to the story. T. Lue did the exact same thing before, after Game 5. After Game 5, we got out of the Warriors game with a victory, and he was like, everybody give me some money. I had no idea what he was doing. I borrowed some money from Channing, and I was like, hey, I'm not giving him the money. Here, Channing, take the money. And he put it up in the ceiling. He was like, the only way we get this money is if we come back for Game 7. Mm-hmm. So it's good to know where he got it from. Chene, look, if you can play one-on-one versus any fictional character, who would it be?
Hey, first of all, that's an NBA thing. Hey, Coach Fisher, you listening? Coach Derek Fisher, you listening? I want my money. Let's do that. But now, the cat's out of the bag. If I could play one-on-one against I don't know. I always get the whole, as a woman that plays basketball, I'll play you for your heart one-on-one. So maybe some
love and basketball.
I get the love and basketball often. Let me play you for your heart. I'm like, nah, not today. So, I don't know. My sister was in Space Jam, so our family's subtle flex, I guess. Not really subtle.
All right. So I was trying to come up with something from Hoosiers, because that's like the basketball movie. But you know what the real answer is? What? Teen Wolf.
Oh.
Teen Wolf.
He was nice. People don't, kids, if you didn't get a chance, ask your parents about
that's
Teen
your
Wolf.
Teen Wolf?
Is that Robert Downey Jr. right there? Oh, yeah, Team Wolf.
I know a whole
I
different
wouldn't want a
Team Wolf.
garden though. He'd be all sweaty.
Yeah,
Ew.
that's probably like Garden Perk.
Listen, I'm going with Shep off above the rim.
Yeah.
Thomas. Like anytime you have a guy that show up in hooping in pants or jeans, it kind of reminds me of this guy we used to have back in my hometown. We called him Cadillac Red. Like he was 55 years old, used to show up to the local park with a 40 and a cigarette and give you work with jeans on.
Yeah,
Dog.
40
So,
in a Newport going to work.
Yeah, Newport going to work and giving you 50. So if I had to go one-on-one, it would be Shep off
See,
above
me,
the rim.
I couldn't do a one-on-one. It was a 2v2. I want to go again. I had to go against Sidney Dean, Billy Hoyle. Like, that was a movie that I grew up. White Man Can't Jump. Jack Harlow. Hey, Jack, man, I'm ready for a cameo, whatever you need, man. Jack Harlow, he's going to play Sidney Dean. But look, that was not the only pregame action that caught our attention before the game last night. Prior to the Clippers' loss, Kawhi Leonard participated in a pregame workout that lasted well over an hour. Leonard hasn't played a game since tearing the ACL in his right knee June 14th, and the Clippers have yet to make a determination on whether he and Paul George will return this season. Woj, I got a question for you. Is it realistic to see either of these two this season?
I think it's certainly more realistic, Richard, that Paul George has a chance to return. Now, he's starting to shoot with that right elbow. He got past the point where I think that they felt like they would need to do a procedure, have surgery. And so I think there's more optimism that we'll see Paul George this season. Now, they have not ruled Kawhi Leonard out yet this season, but we're really just on 8-9 months of an ACL injury. And that's on the short end of a return. You saw Markelle Fultz just come back after a year. And I think you haven't seen Kawhi Leonard cleared yet for contact to do any more. I think with the team in the 8th seed right now, I think it is far less likely you'll see Kawhi Leonard than Paul George. I think, as we know, you look at their rosters, this is a team in LA with the Clippers that next season may be a preseason favorite.